Hello.
Hello.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining us tonight. We're just giving everyone a minute to get in from the waiting room, and we'll get started.
Quick question, Karen. Will the PowerPoint be available after the presentation?
Yes.
Great, thank you.
Mhm. And I'm just going to remind everyone to please be on mute if you are not speaking. Okay, well, it is 8:02, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's webinar, Words Matter, Inclusion, Communication, and Engagement. I am Karen Goldberg. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a member of Women of Isaiah at Temple Isaiah in Lafayette, California, and I am your WRJ Vice President of Member Services. Next slide, please. So whether we're talking about our local sisterhoods and women's groups, districts, or Women of Reformed Judaism as a North American organization, I believe every WRJ community aspires to be inclusive, a place where all of its members and supporters experience a sense of belonging and know that they are valued, essential, and embraced for who they are. Feeling included is a key aspect of human life. Many of us can recall a sense of exclusion, moments when we felt left out, other, different, that we weren't welcome or weren't appreciated. Inclusion is the reverse, making people feel welcome, ensuring that it's safe for them to express who they choose to be, demonstrating our appreciation for their input, working collaboratively, and showing we care. The work of inclusion and belonging is about meeting the needs of everyone in our WRJ communities, including those who may be on the margins. An inclusive culture and community of belonging is one which will be able to deepen engagement with all existing and potential members, and which will empower diverse members and leaders to share their experiences and perspectives, which in turn will encourage innovation and development, not only strengthening our communities now, but also ensuring their growth and vibrancy for generations to come. We know that simply saying we're welcoming and want to engage our members is not enough. Creating an inclusive culture and community of belonging and finding ways to deeper member and volunteer engagement requires concrete actions and intentionality. It requires continual reflection on our beliefs and practices and the evolving needs of our WRJ members and women's groups. Words matter. Language is powerful. Using inclusive language can enhance our empathy, clarity, and understanding of each other as complex individuals with intersectional and varied identities and experiences. Inclusive language is more than just avoiding the use of a few antiquated or offensive terms and phrases. It is about embracing communication that acknowledges power differentials and equity dynamics in our society that shape people's lives. It's about showing appreciation for the diversity everyone brings to the table. It is about creating spaces where people can feel free to be their full, authentic selves. Tonight's speakers will help us understand some of the ways we can develop our inclusive communication skills and practice engagement and belonging efforts in our own communities, from the language we use and how we communicate generally to how we reach our members, build relationships, engage with people, and address conflict when it arises. Next slide, please. We acknowledge that people come from different experiences, multiple identities, and cultural frameworks as we enter into this work together. An invitation and reminder as we talk tonight. We invite you to try on new ideas and perspectives. We encourage active listening, really listening to understand, not just to respond. We take responsibility for the discussion. We call in and we do not call out. We understand it is okay to let people know if they said something that hurts. That's the ouch. And in return, apologize for causing hurt ourselves. That's the oops. We invite your active participation without interruption, which includes thoughtful use of the chat. Take space, make space. Please realize your presence is valuable while also allowing others to be seen and heard. Use I statements. When speaking, please focus on your own experiences and feelings. We assume positive intent while acknowledging that intent is different than impact. We encourage you to lean into new learnings, be present tonight and avoid distractions, and please remember to share what you learn and not what you heard. In other words, what's said here stays here. We honor confidentiality. If people share their private stories, we ask that those stories be respected. At the same time, we invite you not to just sit here with us for an hour and listen and learn, but to really think about how you are going to take your learning out into the world when this webinar is over. Next slide, please. And now on to our program. Our first speaker is Shoshana Dweck. Shoshana is a WRJ Executive Committee member at large, currently overseeing our inclusion and belonging work. She is the former WRJ Vice President of Social Justice, a role in which she helped to launch WRJ Says Stop, an initiative against sexual harassment and assault. A recovering lawyer and engineer, Shoshana started her WRJ leadership journey as Sisterhood President of Temple Sha'arei Tefillah in Bedford Corners, New York, where she now serves on the Temple board and on her district board. She is a former local federation president and past chair of the New York Says Thank You Foundation and its Stars of Hope Healing Arts work, supporting individuals and communities around the world impacted by mass tragedies. She is also co-chair of Artsenu, the International Federation of Reform, Progressive, Religious, and Liberal Zionists, serves on the executive board of the URJ, and holds a number of other roles in organizations around the world. It is an honor to have Shoshana with us tonight. So Shoshana, over to you.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you for helping us shape with the BREAT our intention to create in this webinar space tonight an environment of inclusion and learning. Both our intention and our impact matter as we strive to take the actions that include others and ensure that we ourselves are included. As Karen said, I'm Shoshana Dweck, she, her pronouns. I'm an individual member and a member of the WRJ Executive Committee, focusing on infusing inclusion into our work and our spaces. We know that WRJ lives its values of inclusion and belonging every day and is continually learning and evolving as well. Just as we each week study and learn new lessons from the same Torah portion we read a year ago, so do we constantly study and learn about ourselves and from each other on the topic of inclusion and belonging. If you remember one thing from this part of tonight's webinar, let it be that inclusion is not a test on which we can get a 100%. There is no such thing as perfect. Inclusion is a process, an intention, a constant evolution. I like to think about our diversity as a set of facts about us, belonging as the ultimate goal, and inclusion as the actions we take to get closer to that feeling and reality of being a community of belonging for ourselves, for each other, and for the people who previously were on the margins. WRJ North America has recognized that through its recent constitutional revisions that both expanded the definition of membership that is written into our Constitution to reflect the makeup of our community, and lowered certain barriers to leadership pathways for our members. Together with these changes, we took significant steps on the inclusion pathway that WRJ has walked for over a century, and we will continue to walk that path together. We did it by focusing on our values. I love the way Rabbi Hirsch, the WRJ CEO, phrases the inclusion question, what if we say yes? If we ask ourselves regularly, what if we say yes to each other? Can we do better at saying yes to each other? Are we effective at saying yes to each other? And who do we now understand is on the margins of our community that we need to use intentional actions of inclusion to move them from the margins into belonging by saying yes to them and to each other? Slide, please. So what creates a feeling of belonging? It starts with psychological safety. That doesn't mean that we must create a conflict-free zone or that our goal is to achieve or work from certainty. Quite the contrary. A psychologically safe space is one in which we can respectfully disagree and present our perspectives. Remember, inclusion is a constant process of learning and evolution. So what is psychological safety? It's an environment built on and fostering interpersonal trust and mutual respect. It means thinking about each other while also ensuring that our own personal boundaries and needs are met. It takes intention and communication. Why do I start a presentation with my pronouns? And others also include land acknowledgements. Why at an in-person meeting do I insist on using a microphone so that there is appropriate amplification for everyone to be able to hear? For the pronouns, I share my name and pronouns to acknowledge and normalize that I have two ways that you can address me and speak about me, my name and my pronouns. So I share them to give you those tools. You don't have to guess. At the same time, I am showing that I respect every one of you and whatever your pronouns are, and that I want you to be your true and complete selves on all vectors of diversity when we are together. Why do we qualify curiosity and encourage only respectful curiosity? Because we all know times when we have had good curiosity that helps us see someone as their full selves. And then there's that kind of curiosity that kills the cat, where we just are asking to fill in the blanks and have the information. So we ask one question too many. Respectful curiosity recognizes that there is a line between curiosity that fosters inclusion and belonging by having us get to know each other better, and curiosity that is really questioning whether someone belongs there. It might not be malicious in its intent, but it certainly others them in its impact. Respectful curiosity listens when someone draws that boundary line and respects it and doesn't repeat the crossing of it. Some examples of disrespectful curiosity: no one owes you an explanation of what parts they were born with, or what country their grandparents were born in, or why their child got divorced, or even what their Jewish journey is. Perhaps ask about their leadership or WRJ journey instead. That's respectful and meaningful in the context of a WRJ program. Slide, please. Kol Yisrael Aravim Zeh Lezeh. All of Israel are responsible for one another. Whose job is it to maintain an environment of psychological safety, a community of inclusion and belonging? Everyone, from the newest person through the door to the most senior leader. If we share the expectation up front that we all are expected and able to take responsibility for it, and we start from an intention of mutual respect, such as with the Brit, we have a good chance of getting inclusion right most of the time. Slide, please. During the most recent Olympics and Paralympics, there was a constant conversation about inclusion. Celebrations of unique talents, backgrounds, and body types were all over social media. And if you watch Dancing with the Stars, we thank you for watching it on tape delay tonight. You will see two bronze medalists, rugby star Ilona Maher and gymnast Steve Nedorosek, who lift up everyone around them and all of us. And I must admit, I'm a huge fan of the love story between Paralympian gold medalist Hunter Woodhall and his wife, Olympic gold medalist Tara Davis Woodhall. Each of these athletes use social media to spread messages of inclusion that lead to belonging. But there were undertones of negativity everywhere as well. Most commonly, female and non-binary athletes being tagged as male, having nothing to do with their biology or identity, just their athletic prowess. It was a toxic mix of misogyny and homophobia. Within that environment, I saw an incredible interview where Nikki Hiltz was asked to define non-binary for the world. What a burden to be at the pinnacle of your career and have to help a reporter answer a question that they could have looked up for themselves, to have to define, defend, and be defined by your gender everywhere you go and on every platform. It's exhausting. A relatively smaller version of that is if I assert that I am neither a female engineer nor a woman lawyer, as if those were different careers from the ones I practiced when I was an engineer and a lawyer. Rabbi Hirsch has a great article about not wanting to be called a female rabbi. She is a rabbi. Back to the interview of Nikki Hiltz. Nikki reminded us all that inclusion and belonging start with compassion, not comprehension. Compassion, not comprehension means that we can accept that their name is Nikki and that their pronouns are they, them, and be fully inclusive of them, creating a sense of belonging, even if we don't fully comprehend all the ins and outs of LGBTQ plus terminology, genders, sexualities, gender presentations, etc. There is, after all, so much we don't know about each other, about our respective cultures and backgrounds, and our abilities or disabilities, and that's okay. Compassion is necessary to create an environment of belonging and a sense of psychological safety. Learning is helpful, but full comprehension is never a requirement for us to respect each other or an obligation on someone who is different from us to teach us. If you wish, take advantage of opportunities to learn and resources, such as those that are part of the WRJ Says Stop online resources on the WRJ website or the Religious Action Center trainings. Whether you choose to expand your knowledge base or not, and whether the people around you make that choice or not, encourage everyone to start with compassion and not a requirement of full comprehension to get going on our inclusion journey. That being said, I will note that I take the perspective of advocating for pronoun inclusion, not for pronoun mandating. There are those who are cross-dressers, others who are gender fluid or on a gender journey, or otherwise have a reason not to include pronouns. They might have days when they aren't sure of their pronouns or can't predict on the day they sign up for a program what pronouns they will be using on the day of the program. That's part of gender fluidity. So I actually like for a pronoun space on a form to be optional, not mandatory, to be truly inclusive of different gender and pronoun perspectives. But as long as we are coming from compassion, we will take the right actions to be inclusive. Next slide, please. Our personal identities are like an iceberg. Above the surface is what people see, what they assume based on their perceptions, sometimes incorrectly. Below the surface is the vast majority of what makes up who we really are. Our lives, our experiences are many different vectors of personal identity. What we have passed through and who we have become. Let's take a minute and think about what people see and even misperceive about us above the line, and what attributes make up who we are below the line. Feel free to drop into the chat either an above the line or a below the line attribute or both. Looking at me, you might guess my age, but you can't see my bad back, that I'm divorced, that I keep kosher, that my 3 children are proudly Syrian Jews. Those are all part of my iceberg and my identity. Those are diverse attributes that make up me. You do not have to comprehend all of that to show me by your actions that you include and welcome all of me. So how do you show it? The slide of shared covenants that Karen showed us at the start helps. The sharing of your pronouns, the intentional use of a microphone, or even a sentence or two at the outset of a program can all do the trick of letting people know your values, that you lead with compassion. So go ahead and start a program by saying it. We are a diverse community that acts with inclusion to create an environment of belonging. We don't get it right all of the time, but it is our goal and our intention, and we keep working at it. Slide, please. The next few slides are here to serve as a resource for you when we send out the slides after the presentation. Please reuse them. Tonight, we will not linger on them. Let's review, however, what is a microaggression. They can take on many forms, and we will send out a link to a resource that gives you even more information and ideas on how to avoid and how to respond to microaggressions. The comment, "What a great picture, I look so thin," can be a body image microaggression that harms the person next to you. Asking Nikki Hiltz to define non-binary can be a microaggression, or it can be appropriate, depending on the context and the mutual expectations of the program or event you are at. When my English teacher thought that I should explain Shylock because I was the rabbi's daughter back in 8th grade, I'm still the rabbi's daughter, but that was a microaggression, and I remember to this day how it made me feel. Next slide, please. Here we get a sense of those misguided curiosity questions, the assumption that someone older can't learn about or use technology, or the excuse by someone that remembering your pronouns is just too hard for them when they have no trouble remembering someone else's names. Those are the kinds of mosquito bites that pile up. My son is transmasculine, and it took some time before I realized that he spends his whole day receiving those mosquito bites over and over again, one interaction after another. My conversation with someone at a program or at services or at the Oneg or in the grocery store might be just for a few moments. But what if it's the 20th time they've faced that question at synagogue that month? Or if they've heard that question that day or that week? The question might be innocent in its intent, but thinking with compassion reminds us not to ask it. Slide, please. So how do we make sure we use the correct and inclusive language? Well, there are some norms: using correct names and pronouns, not asking certain questions that undermine someone's identity as belonging with us. And sometimes the language choices are unique to the individual. To use a very Parv example, when you have met one person who keeps kosher, you know how one person keeps kosher. So we do our thoughtful best to know our audience, to signal inclusion, to use language that creates a space of mutual respect, and to listen to each other. These are actions of inclusion, not perfection, and that's okay. Someone afterwards corrects us, suggests something different to us, or engages in conversation with us about it. That's a good time for listening and active curiosity. Remember, the goal is inclusion and a sense of belonging, not a 100% on the test. If we view all of it, including when someone corrects or challenges us, as a path of constant learning, then we can hear different perspectives on language evolution or choice without being defensive. We can choose to say sisters and friends in our opening, or to change the language in a prayer that says brothers and sisters to brothers, siblings, and sisters. We can stumble and correct ourselves without being embarrassed, because even if we misspeak and say with a smile, "Ladies and gentlemen, I mean folks and all of us gathered here," we have signaled inclusion and an intention of belonging. We did no lasting harm, and we probably did some good in our own self-correction. I choose welcome sisters and friends, If you have an idea of what you like to say in place of welcome sisters, you can drop some ideas into the chat to share with each other. Next slide, please. And one more slide forward, please. This brings us to the final piece of my part of the presentation, and it really bridges the various sections, the art of the apology. I love the suggestions, by the way, that are coming in. Welcome everyone, welcome family, welcome friends. But what if we say the wrong thing? We are going to use a good and effective apology often as we move along the inclusion pathway. I know I do. A good apology takes practice. It's something we can do at home in front of a mirror, or even as part of a program or exercise together. It's quick, it centers the person who received the microaggression or error, and it gets us right back to our original conversation. How do I center the person? By apologizing and taking responsibility and then stopping. We usually make the mistake of keeping going with longer apologies and explanations because we are centering our own feelings of wanting to explain and to be forgiven, but please don't. Don't spend time in the moment explaining why we made the error, whether it's justification, rationalization, or even pure-hearted explanation. Take responsibility, make the appropriate correction, and remember the box in the upper right-hand corner. Get back to the conversation you were having before the error. If you spend time explaining why you deserve to be forgiven, you are getting further and further away from the conversation you were having that the other person wanted to be in about what to serve at the new member brunch or preparations for Rosh Hashanah or plans for a Yes Fund fundraiser. Remember, your one moment of error is just one moment in your day. But for someone frequently on the receiving end of microaggressions and errors, it's often repeated throughout the day, every day. Navigating our world in a wheelchair or as someone who is non-binary or with a food allergy can be exhausting and time-consuming to constantly reassure the other person at length that they are forgiven and it's okay. And that takes away from the conversations we are actually trying to have over and over and over again. So hold on to responsibility, but release that guilt and be accountable for the error and for getting the conversation back to its originally scheduled programming as quickly as possible. Diversity is our fact, with everyone having a seat at our table. Inclusion is the actions we take and the environment we create as we say yes to ourselves and to each other and have all of our diverse selves feel the sense of belonging that is our destination. Now I believe we have a few moments for questions before we hand things over to the next part of the program.
We do. Thank you so much, Shoshana. That was very informative, very helpful. And I actually forgot to tell everyone to put questions into the chat. So you can be either thinking of them right now. I'll get us started with something, but or you can just go ahead and raise your hand electronically and we will call on you. We have about 5 minutes for questions. So Shoshana, you just did a beautiful job explaining the art of the apology. I have a related question for you. What if I hear or see someone else making a mistake or engaging in a microaggression? How do I respond to that? What should I do?
This is going to be actually very personal and unique to you because we're all comfortable with different approaches. One of the reasons I love the microaggression resource that you'll get the link to later in the chat and also in the follow-up email is because it asks you and gives you the prompts to help you consider, how might I respond? Some people like to respond with a joke, to say, I didn't understand. What did you mean by that? Which can put somebody back on their heels. Some people like to call someone on it. Hey, that's not how we do it here. Some people might jump in and answer the inappropriate question. So if someone asks the question, you might say, here's there's a rugula over there. Wait a minute, did you see that? That's really delicious. Or you might say, because deflecting works too. Or you might say, oh, this was my journey to leadership in WRJ. What was yours? So you change the question. But everybody is going to have their own personal way of doing it. And I will share just a brief story that when I was serving security, someone came up to me and asked me when I was going to frisk them. And just to be clear that they were being misogynist, they turned to my male partner and said, not you, her. And my male partner didn't know what to say. And he was really upset about the fact that he didn't know what to say. So I pointed him to it was at that point brand new. I think it had been out for a week, the microaggression piece. And the most amazing thing happened. On Sunday morning, I got a text and it said, I think in the future, this is what I will say. And that told me that he had spent the weekend really thinking about it. So it's a marvelous piece for helping you think through your way, you do it your way, however you are comfortable. It's not for you to have to put yourself in an uncomfortable situation. If that means delay, meaning that you go and talk to someone about it afterwards and say, I heard that. I'm so sorry that happened. We'll keep working on that. Again, it doesn't have to be long, but let them know that they were seen and they belong, and that it's the question or the comment that doesn't belong.
Thank you so much. And I see we do have a question in the chat. How does implicit bias impact the way we unconsciously relate to the iceberg?
That is a superb question. So inherent and implicit biases, we don't always know what animates us. I always like to use the example of I'm such a chocoholic that if I'm interviewing caterers, right, and I'm interviewing 3 of them and one of them puts chocolate in front of me, I'm likely to choose that caterer not on their merits, but because an implicit bias has led me to choose them. Right? And we can all agree that that's a good choice. I know not everybody loves chocolate, but for me, it's a good choice. Okay, so we all carry these implicit biases shaped by our experiences and how we've moved through life, shortcuts that we use to analyze things. So yeah, when we misperceive something in what is visible on the iceberg, or assume something in the bottom of the iceberg based on what we see, or based on what we think, or the address we know someone is coming from, for example, then we add misperception to the iceberg. And it's an extra step to then listen enough to overcome that misperception, all the biases that go along with it, to actually see the person who's in front of us. And so that's an added layer to what happens with the iceberg. A great question.
Awesome. Well, I think we are going to keep moving along in our program for now. I did put the links to some additional resources in the chat box, and we may have time for additional questions at the end. So thank you again, Shoshana. Next slide, please. Our next speakers are Cheryl Berenberg and Jen Daly. Cheryl is a WRJ Executive Committee member at large, currently serving as liaison to WRJ area directors and also as co-chair of the WRJ Board Nominating Committee. She is a member of Congregation Temple Emmanuel in Beaumont, Texas, where she has served in various leadership positions, including Sisterhood President and Congregational President. She is the immediate past president of the WRJ Southwest District. Cheryl is also an amazing cook and actually an academy-trained chef. Jen is a former member of the WRJ Executive Committee and past WRJ Chair of Marketing and Communications, who helped develop and launch our new WRJ logo and branding. Jen is a past president of the WRJ Southwest District and a past sisterhood president of Congregation Gates of Prayer Sisterhood in Metairie, Louisiana, and Congregation Beth Shalom in Arlington, Texas. Professionally, Jen serves as the executive director of Temple Sinai in New Orleans. Jen is one of the most vibrant and creative people I know, with an incredible flair for costumes. So we really have some fabulous WRJ leaders with us here tonight to help us hone our leadership skills. So Cheryl, over to you.
Thank you, Karen. I appreciate that. And thank you, Shoshana, for the lead into this with your inclusion and diversity piece. As Karen said, I am Cheryl Berenberg, and I use the pronouns she, her, and we're going to spend a few minutes chatting about engaging our boards. I think it is so appropriate that this week's Torah portion in Deuteronomy, we talk about change. In the parashah, our people have been wandering in the desert for 40 years and are about to reach the land of Israel, and they embark on a season of change. When I think of engaging our boards, it's always with the thought of, can we make the changes needed so we will all feel wanted, heard, and engaged as leaders? And why is this important? Why is engagement so crucial? Have you ever heard someone say, how are we going to find our next president? No one's willing to step up. This is leading to how do we do that? We engage our boards is where we begin to solve those two challenging questions. Let's take a moment to go into the chat and answer the following question. What are some opportunities your sisterhood or women's group has where a board member could participate? And chairing an event is not going to cut it because that's a given answer. So take a few seconds and type in some opportunities where a board member might be able to participate. Okay, I see one. Check in at the desk. Reach out and invite non-members to events. Another good idea, another good opportunity for someone to get involved. Well, while you continue to think about that, we'll move on. We may have members that commit to being on our board, but if they're not engaged, they won't stay and they don't have any buy-in. And to build your leadership bench, we need them to stay and we need them to have some sort of buy-in. This means that we now have to provide opportunities for them to engage in. And then we need to thank them for whatever contribution they've made, no matter how big or how small. And some of the things you could do is say, hi, I'm Cheryl, and I just want to thank you for organizing the jewelry station at our Hanukkah Bazaar. Or you could say, we're so lucky you were here to help us get the lunch ready for all of the volunteers. Or you could thank them for managing all of the volunteers today at the bazaar. Without an opportunity to give your board members to be in charge of something and then thanking them, how are we going to build them up and give them the confidence for larger projects or even chairing an event? There's some key issues that we need to think about. We need to create events or opportunities to promote engagement. We used to say, just ask, and more than likely they will do that. What we're finding now is the ask is not enough anymore. There has to be something to actually attend or for the potential leader to do. And with the busy schedules we all have, we need to be able to address if someone says, what's in it for me? We can get them to attend if it's an item that speaks to their passion as well. And once they attend and they're working on something that they're passionate about, we can now start to cultivate them through the leadership process. If we go back to the question I posed earlier about opportunities that you put in the chat, we can take a look at that and see how we would move forward. It's now time to develop their leadership skills by assigning small tasks. Remember, there's no faster way to scare off somebody by asking a potential leader to chair something large after they've only done a small task. No matter how tempted we are and how often they've done a great job, we need to remember all tasks are important. We also need to think about not calling leadership positions jobs. I hate when somebody comes up and says, hey, I have a job for you to do. We're all volunteers and all of us already have a job, and adding one more job is sometimes simply enough to make us say no. So how about we ask our potential leaders to do something such as an opening prayer, suggest a book club speaker, suggest the book that we might review at the book club, attend a brainstorming session on an event that we might want to have, maybe attend the planning session for that event. Somebody put in the chat, lead the check-in table at an event. I think that's a great way to get new board leaders involved. And also planning the snack schedule. I'm a foodie. I will plan meals, desserts, snacks anytime. Ask me to do that. That's my passion. I will do that. You might have somebody who could lead a portion of a fundraiser because they like to do fundraising projects. While I know it's sometimes faster to just accomplish the task on your own or plan the event on your own, if you do that, you've eliminated all those opportunities for board member engagement and development. I know a sisterhood president who used to break down all the events she had coming up in any given month into small tasks, and she wrote those tasks on an index card. She was at the Sunday school pickup line every Sunday morning of religious school. She introduced herself to the mothers and asked them if they could help with sisterhood in any of the small tasks that she had. You could do the same thing at your board meeting to cultivate your board leadership panel. You can break down all the tasks with any given event that you have planned through the board and sisterhood, and at the end of the meeting, give 5 minutes and allow your board members to pick and claim a task that speaks to them. Now, another thing that we need to do to develop our leadership bench is to foster that relationship. We need to make sure that the task fits the person's skill set. If you have somebody who is really good at numbers and you ask them to bake a cake, that's probably not going to work. So we need to make sure the person's skills fit the task at hand. And then when they've completed the task, we need to give them a compliment on what they did and that they did do a good job. And you can use the all-important phrase when you ask them to do the task at the end of it and say, is this a good fit for you? So you might say as a leader to somebody, Rachel, you are so organized and I know you would be great at this. Can you take the RSVPs for the Rosh Chodesh event? Is that a good fit for you? Or you could say, Leah, I know you're a very spiritual person. I always see you on Facebook Live links for Shabbat services. I think you'd be the perfect person to deliver the opening prayer before our reproductive rights workshop, if you think this is a good fit for you. Or you could say, Sarah, I saw you on the same URJ racial justice webinar that I was on last week. I think you would be the perfect person to introduce our speakers before the racial justice section of our board meeting in November. And you need to continually ask, what are you passionate about? This will give us the insight to assign tasks to our future leaders that are appropriate and fit for what that person is interested in. Lastly, as we go through this process, I think we need to think about our seasoned board members and utilize them as mentors who will foster a relationship with our newer board members. This mentor should continue to invite upcoming leaders to events that they don't have an assigned task at, and be prepared to follow up with them via email, text, or better yet, a phone call, or even invite them out for coffee. The mentor should invite that person to ongoing or upcoming events. As we all know, many hands make light work and also help us find new leaders. And with that, I will turn it over to Jen Daly to talk about helping our board understand their specific roles and responsibilities in this process. Thank you. I can't hear you, Jen. I think you're muted.
And there we go. Thanks, Cheryl. And if we could advance the slide one, please. and maybe one more. Fantastic. We are good to go. As Cheryl said, I'm Jen Daly. I use she, her pronouns, and we're going to spend a few minutes right now on the roles and responsibilities of your board members. So as a former sisterhood president, it is not really enough to just stay organized. The habit that many of us result back to, myself included, is that that the task is sometimes faster completed if I just do it myself. And I am here to say tonight that that habit is going to do not only yourself a disservice, but also your women's group a disservice if you fall back on that method. So what we need to do is when we get started with any event, and even the beginning of the year, we create our organization chart and we create a RACI for our events that give you an immeasurable benefit. And for those that haven't heard of RACI before, that's responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed. So when we have a volunteer, what is the volunteer's task? Who do they report to? And if you're the chair, can we break up the tasks any further to create more engagement? So that's what Cheryl was just talking about, that the more opportunities that we have to keep our members engaged, the better. And the way we're going to do that is to break it up. So I'd like you all to go back into the chat. We are going to be busy tonight, and we're going to go back to that imaginary book club, which we're going to use that as our event tonight. So let's practice with our imaginary book club that is going to happen this Sunday. How can we break this event down to the smallest tasks so we give the most amount of opportunity to our members? Watch in the chat. Go to it. Okay, someone could be choosing the book. Someone can lead the discussion. Yep. Someone providing the snacks. I love it. That's easy. Marcy, that's a great one. Introducing the speaker. And the reason I bring that up, that was on my list if someone didn't put it. I was petrified to do public speaking. Petrified for years. And the way I got through it is through small introductions. And I learned to be able to speak in a small setting. But giving introductions is a great way to mentor a leader. And I see that someone just asked about RACI. That stands for responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed. I see Naomi with bringing a specific snack assignment. Love it. Thank you, Shoshana, for putting RACI back in there. Some of the other tasks that when I was brainstorming, I thought it might be nice that, again, the check-in table, to be a greeter, to be able to the new people that are coming, it gives you an opportunity that they learn how to say hello, especially to people they don't know. This is us taking the opportunity to bring new people into our circle. So when Cheryl talked about a minute ago, how, you might have someone who says they can't step up, or we don't have anyone step up. We go outside of our circle and we look for people to do these smaller tasks. And we give them, here is who you report to, here is how we measure it, here is what you are responsible for. So we create that RACI worksheet, which we'll go ahead and I'll put in Mighty Networks at the end tonight. Okay, moving on. How do we reach our members? So let's remember to approach people we don't know. Scary? Yes. We all still have phones, and that personal connection of a human voice on the phone means so much right now. We get tons of email, and to have that personal phone call, hi, I'm Jen. I know we've never met before, but I've seen you during religious school pickup, and I know that you would be great to have at your really personable, and I'd love to have you at my check-in desk for book club that is this Sunday, or whatever the event. Again, as Cheryl talked about, we want to match up tasks with the right person, but these are opportunities to reach out to our membership and reach out to people we don't know. The reason that I was started in sisterhood, my start story, is because someone called me and said, do you want to come to a membership tea? I never would have started in sisterhood if it wasn't for that. And then they invited me to the Mom and Tot group. And the rest is history. But without that first phone call, and I was a working mom with a 2-year-old, it doesn't happen without that personal touch. So Cheryl talked about this as well. We need a value proposition that resonates with our busy women that have so many choices of their free time, but we do need to match them up with their passions and create those opportunities, targeted, so that if you are having a Mom and Tot group that's sponsored by Sisterhood, the person who makes those calls isn't necessarily the president, if that person isn't in that age group or in that cohort, I should say, so that we want the calls to come from from their peer. We want it to come from that cohort. Temple director. Sorry, I'm reading chat while we keep going. So I think it's really important that we match people up with their with people that they relate to. Let's move on to addressing conflict. When I hear the phrase, that's how it's always been done, I have a little shudder of disappointment. So not only do we not engage and empower new leaders if we make them do something that it's the way it's always been done, but we also lose a chance at building our bench of upcoming leaders. We need to be there to support and lift up, not discourage and tell someone why it won't work. We try to listen to and we thank those that have chaired the events before you, but we can also explain that we want to, after we hear what worked and what didn't, we explain that we want to try something new. If you are a current sisterhood president, women's group president on this call, be prepared to back up your chairs that are trying something new, help them fly, and don't tell them why it won't work. Again, I joined this Locks and Tots play group at my first temple and sisterhood in Texas. And it was because this group said, you all go and do whatever you want and we'll support you. That's how I felt the ability to be creative. As Karen pointed out, I'm not afraid to go outside the box because I had leadership that was there to support me and say, it doesn't have to look the way it has in the past. And that has always been invaluable. And that's what I impart to the leaders that I work with. The power of apology. So you have empowered someone new to fly and they're trying their new event and they're excited and it's well planned and it's organized, and you get to the event day and you hear the past chair giving some negative comments and you see that person is discouraged. What do we do? My advice is that you do pull aside that new leader immediately and you apologize. You explain it's not how you feel. You give words of encouragement. You give words of praise. I think that it's really important that we don't get in the habit of sweeping wrongdoings under the rug, that we address it immediately and by a conversation. It's not an email, it's not a text, could be by phone or in person, but that we address tough situations and really that person understands and feels like they've been heard and feels like they have support. So even if you hear something negative through a third party, I think that it's never a bad idea to reach out and say, hey, I'm just thinking of you. I want to make sure you're okay after that event. I think that they will appreciate enough that you cared and you were reaching out. So with that, I think we are at our time, and we can open it up just for a couple minutes, I think, for questions.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much, Cheryl and Jen, both. That was fabulous. So does anyone have any questions that they would like to ask Cheryl or Jen about engaging our members, reaching out to new people, deepening our bench,
Building our bench.
building our bench? We're always all trying to build our bench.
Okay. I don't see anything in the chat.
I don't either.
Me
Okay, well, yeah, you just did such a great job. Okay.
Thank you
Okay,
all. I appreciate you
yes,
Thank
thank
having me
you,
here tonight.
Jen. Thank you, Cheryl.
You're
Thank you,
welcome.
Shoshana. And also thank you to Talia Blank, who is behind the scenes running things, and to Michelle Rosen for running the slide deck for us tonight. And I'm going to go ahead and turn things over now to Sherry Fewer.
Hi, everyone. What a wonderful program. Thank you for coming. I'm Sherry Fewer, the Vice President of Programs, and I use she, her pronouns. Next slide should be the resource slide. There we go. This slide is a simple recap of some of the resources that we've mentioned to help you get started tonight, and they're wonderful starting point and resources. So once the PowerPoint is posted, you will be able to see these and click on them. And I believe Karen already put them in the chat. So they're also there. But if you have any additional questions, you can always email us at info@wrj.org. I'd like to thank our speakers as well: Karen Goldberg, Vice President of Member Services; Cheryl Barenberg, WRJ Executive Committee; Jennifer Daly, former Executive Committee member; and Shoshana Dweck, Executive Committee member. Thank you all so much for sharing your insights and your resources. And thank you again to Michelle Rosen for running the slides, and Talia Blank, our program associate, for coordinating this program, helping with the speakers and every kind of logistics. So next slide, please. Before we end tonight, I'd like to just take a moment and review some upcoming programs and opportunities. There are so many. In September and October, there are various dates open for phone banking with the Religious Action Center and the Every Voice, Every Vote campaign. Lilith has a creative writing workshop on September 26th. And it is open to writers of every level. Learn to practice observation, memory, and navigation skills. That's at 8 Eastern. On September 29th, the Honor and Hope program, a global reform movement of commemoration. It's on its commemoration of October 7th. Join the entire reform movement worldwide as we come together to commemorate 1 year since October 7th, and that's at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. On October 10th, the Days of Awe program, WRJ is co-sponsoring with Dayenu, is taking place, and that's a phone banking program to encourage Arizona voter turnout on climate matters. That's at 9 p.m. Eastern. WRJ's next virtual Lilith Salon is on October 21st. If you haven't been to a Lilith, register and come. They're terrific discussion nights and they're open to everyone. Watch for the registration. And finally, there's an upcoming online Hanukkah cooking demonstration scheduled for December 19th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Details and registration will follow soon. Don't forget to check Mighty Networks online for all the online programs that we've talked to, and not only from WRJ, but our district and partners as well. There's always something happening, so check Mighty Networks frequently. And finally, please fill out our post-program survey. You'll receive a request to complete a survey within a week. Let us know how you felt about this program, how we can improve future programs, and send us your ideas. We're always looking for new programs. So thank you all for spending this time with us. Have a wonderful rest of your evening. Good night.